Alright, we're now in possibly one of the longest wars we've been involved in, if you look at it that way, and the war on terror and how this kind of happened over the years, following what we're about to look at. Now, on September 11th, 2001, the United States of America was attacked in a planned attack using hijacked planes. Two of these planes will hit the Twin Towers, bringing them down to their knees and killing hundreds and injuring thousands in the process. A third plane will crash into the Pentagon, where our Department of Defense and many other agencies are housed, making a pretty bad damage there. And a fourth plane is actually brought down by members on the flight. It was headed for Camp David to take out the president, and they decided to overrun it, so they put it into the ground. There's a lot of movies made about that movie. There's a lot of movies made about that plane event, sorry. And so this is the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil ever. Hundreds of people dead, thousands of people wondering why is this going on. Okay? And so in class, when I bring this up, we're actually going to look at some inspiring stories of this. I don't like to bring up the terrorist name at this point because maybe that's giving them credit, but I like to see the way that people react and what they did to help this country when something bad happens. In the moments that come, President Bush is I believe he's reading at the time to some children, something like that. In the coming months, we will announce the war on terror. Now, this is a difficult war, much like the war on poverty, because can you eliminate terror? You can eliminate terror groups, and you can eliminate other things like that. So much like the war on poverty, we're going to try to eliminate the causes of terrorist groups, as well as the effects that they can create. This is a war we are still currently fighting, and a lot of questions will be asked, are we winning this? And so we'll see how that works in a minute. So, the group that ultimately says we are responsible for this in a video is Al-Qaeda. Now, Al-Qaeda, however you want to say it, led by Osama bin Laden. Okay? So the goal is we want to find bin Laden. We don't care what we got to do. We're going to rip stuff up. We're going to find him. We come under a lot of intelligence that he is in Afghanistan. Okay? And he's being harbored by a group called the Taliban. If you remember when Afghanistan was invaded by the Soviet Union, there was a group called the Mujahideen. After they kicked out the Soviet Union, they go into these clan things, these kind of tribal things. And one of these clans that emerged was called the Taliban. They believed in bringing back the Islamic State, things like that, the Ottoman Empire, the Caliphate as it's called, and they thought that Al-Qaeda would be the means to produce this. So, the first thing we're going to do is invade Afghanistan, kind of late 2001. The goal is find the Taliban, remove them from power, set up a democratic government, and, with them out of the way, find out is bin Laden there. Okay? Now, the problem with Afghanistan is simply this. We do get the Taliban. We don't eliminate them. They run up to the high hills. We can't find them. We come to find out Osama bin Laden is not there, but his training camps are, and things like that. And so a few years later, we stay there, and we actually have the first democratically elected president in Afghanistan, and we have all these police groups. However, Afghanistan will fall back to the Taliban once we decide, we say we're going to leave, everybody's fine, we pull out. But these people have only been democratic maybe a few years, so the Taliban comes through and reestablishes power, and currently we are back in Afghanistan fighting to remove the Taliban once again. All right? President Bush will sign into law what's called the Patriot Act, and as well as create the Department of the Homeland Security. The Patriot Act basically is designed to protect national security while giving up some of your personal freedoms. You didn't think you were done with that yet, did you? Surely you didn't. So they're allowed to look at your emails, look at your Google history, things like that. Can they look at everything you're looking at? No, they don't have that type of time. But if you type in certain things, maybe repeatedly, with intent to do it, they're going to begin to key in on you and really start looking at, well, what are they really doing? Why are they doing this? So the Patriot Act has been highly debated. Bush then says, with Afghanistan invaded and the Taliban taken care of, our next goal is take care of the axis of evil. If you remember, that was Iran, Iraq, and North Korea. So Iran, North Korea, they're basically what we call hermits. They really don't mess with us much, so we're not worried about them. But Iraq, if you remember, was a big thing of President Bush's father. And so the phrase he says is, Iraq is harboring a WMD. WMD stands for Weapon of Mass Destruction, an atomic weapon, okay? So we are going to then invade Iraq in 2003 with the goal of finding out do they have WMDs and removing Saddam Hussein from power. We go in, they find Saddam Hussein. He is actually, a lot of his crimes are actually brought up. For example, a soccer team came back and they lost the Olympics, and he had their foot cut off or something ridiculous like that. So Hussein will actually be put on a democratic trial by his peers in Iraq and sentenced to death by hanging. And so they remove him from power and kind of leaves a power void. So hang on to that one, okay? The next thing we're going to do is Syria is involved in a serious thing. No, I'm sorry. Syria is involved in a civil war, okay? And the family that had been in power were called the al-Bashads. So Syria al-Bashad is the guy who's currently there, and we announced that we are going to put sanctions on him because he is using chemical weapons on his own people. We have that information. So we sanction him with the goal of trying to get him to stop. When in actuality what he does is he forms again in with Iran and North Korea and all the kind of anti-American haters that we've been talking about in the axis of evil. Iraq's not included at this point. Remember, we're there trying to set up a democratic government, much like we did in Afghanistan. Then we have the election of, well, I skipped over the election of 2004, didn't I? Huh. But anyway, election of 2004, we know that Bush will win. I think I went through that. Yeah, John Kerry. Okay. So the election of 2008, Bush cannot run again due to 22nd Amendment, and so we have Barack Obama from the Democratic Party running against John McCain of the Republican Party. And you can tell it's a pretty good split. Barack ends up winning, and Barack Obama becomes the first African-American president of the United States. Barack Obama's slogan was a message of change, and the big thing was he said, yes, we can. Yes, we can do this, etc. And he uses that slogan for a few years to describe his domestic policies and things like that. He is going to use the TARP program to help out. Now, in 2008, the country is in a recession, which is a mini depression. The housing market is down. No jobs are being created. And so, through the TARP program, the Federal Debt Relief Program, President Obama is going to bail out several big companies with the goal of getting jobs. He will bail out AIG Insurance, and he will bail out two of what are called the big three car companies. He's going to bail out Chrysler and General Motors. Now, what does these bailout incurs? He actually had people in the government who took control of General Motors and Chrysler. They studied out everything, they cut their losses, and they emerged with just a few things. So when General Motors reemerges from this bailout, the car companies Saturn, Saab, Hunter, Hummer, Pontiac, and Oldsmobile will stop production of cars completely or be sold off. Saab was sold off. It's basically the Fiat you say out here, okay? Chrysler is going to cut several of the Jeep products as well as several of the Chrysler products. The idea is if the car is not selling, stop producing it because it's there. A lot of people who are pro-laissez-faire and conservatives see this as a big infringement upon the free enterprise system. All right? We have one video left, and it's the modern stuff. All right? The stuff we're currently involved in.